Hey everyone, so I wanted to talk about chapter 1041 of One Piece because it was a really cool chapter, and apparently this is just a running thing now. I'm doing the chapter review just before the next chapter comes out, but I've been kind of busy with work, so let's get into it. So the cover chapter for this one was really interesting because I did notice putting back a few chapters ago, just kind of skulking around the area. My thoughts were kind of like maybe she would want to try and help them or try and free them. Apparently, that was incorrect, at least for now. She, in fact, wanted to punch them in the face, which she did manage. Good job. I don't know how she managed that given how incredibly tough they are, but I guess it's the same thing as when Luffy gets hit by Nami and he actually feels it, even though he definitely shouldn't. But it was quite a fun cover story and a nice little progression from what we've had, which is just the people of Totland awkwardly staring at these two trapped in a book. So at least it's going places. That's quite nice. We start out this chapter back with Momonosuke kind of refreshing us on what's happening with Zunisha and all the information that we already had, which, kind of goes to show you he kind of established in three lines everything that we know about this whole situation with Zunisha and how Zunisha is even here and for what reason pretty quickly, even though it's taken years for us to get to this point. But Zunisha has arrived upon somebody's orders, probably Joy Boy 800 years ago, to arrive specifically now at Wano to assist in everything that's going on, I suppose. As Momonosuke mentions later, Odin wasn't a prophet, but wasn't he? How did he know any of this was going to happen? Even a single part of it. I have no idea how Odin knows, unless that has something to do with Laugh Tale, which I'm guessing at this point it does, given the little bit of the One Piece that Big Mom spoke about, as well as Momonosuke here is talking about the last pages of, well, those torn out pages of the journal being critical to what is happening now in Wano. And I don't really see the connection, like what exactly he could be talking about, but he, after reading the journal, knows that now and that day are inextricably linked. Somehow, I guess we could say. But Zunisha's here to fight. That's fantastic. I guess you can start by taking out the world government ships, but after that, I don't really know what you're going to do because I don't think Zunisha can stand up higher up out of the water and climb up the waterfall. I don't really know how that would go. I don't really see how a 20-kilometer tall elephant really climbs into the little fishbowl that is Wano and Onigashima's geography. I don't really know how that works, but Zunisha can certainly take care of the world government ships outside, and that seems like what we're going to get out of that. So Yamato is just as excited about this, that Momo can hear and understand and communicate with Zunisha. Just like Odin predicted, you're the one that's meant to lead the world to its dawn. So reading the journal must have had some kind of explanation on talking to Zunisha, and the person who is able to talk to Zunisha will have a very big role to play in bringing about the dawn of the world. So it certainly seems that these things are incredibly linked by something that we are just so far unaware of, or at least I am so far unaware of. So I'd love to get some clarity on that. But Momonosuke seems to be getting closer and closer to the resolution of what he's meant to do here in this battle specifically. It's also very interesting that Momo is questioning whether he should open the borders of Wano and what Odin would do in this situation. So Momonosuke has clearly learned something very important about the current situation and what it means to open up the borders and the kind of effects that will have on Wano and the people within. He says he's not as wise as Odin was, and he is not sure what he should do. And I'm assuming that Momonosuke, who views herself as Odin, is going to have the perfect words to say to Momo, not in telling him what to do necessarily, but more in helping guide him into making the right decision and being more confident and comfortable with what it is he needs to do exactly, whatever that is. And then we finally cut to the end of the fight between Raizo and Fukurokuju, and text box confirming it and everything. Raizo is the victor, which is fantastic. I thought this was really interesting, a little bit long-winded, considering they literally haven't moved since the last four times we've seen them, except for that one time. Anyway, so as soon as Raizo wins the fight and Fukurokuju has fallen down, has Fukurokuju died? He doesn't talk again after this as far as I'm aware, so I think he might just have burned to death. The fight's over, that's what matters, for some reason. So the way Raizo ends the fight and kind of concludes this mental fight that he's been having with Fukurokuju is to say this is an age where even ninja should be free, which I think is great and really goes well with his character and what he's been trying to say before he started going with the whole silent treatment in this fight. But just at that point, Jinbei comes running in, and I think it's fantastic that Jinbei is here to save Raizo because, well, one, he can manipulate any water if there is any around. Jinbei has been running to the source of the fire for a while now and saving people along the way, and it makes a lot more sense now retroactively that he would be coming here. I didn't really pick up on that, but I'm very glad that Jinbei is here. And it's really cool that Raizo identifies Jinbei as one of Luffy's nakama and one of the Straw Hats. I don't think he says that word for word, but it's really just nice to talk about Jinbei being part of the crew now, because we've been waiting for it for a very long time, up until Onigashima, obviously. Raizo also mentions that the preparations are complete, which is a very interesting thing to say, given you're just lying on the floor burning to death, but that's cool. And then we immediately cut over to Komurasaki, which is also the title of the chapter. So that leads me to believe that the preparations are what we're about to see here. And what we get is Orochi, understandably because it's Orochi, just raging at Fukurokuju not being there to save him and get him out of this burning, flying skull head. Which is just typical Orochi, if you ask me. And then he assumes that Fukurokuju might have run off to save himself. Orochi really is the worst. And while he's just raging to himself and thinking about how it's all just going terribly wrong and that explosion was probably caused by Kanjuro, which you ordered him to do it, so I guess you'd assume that makes sense. Even though it actually wasn't technically, it was Big Mom, but that's fine, as long as it works. And Komurasaki is just playing the shamisen in the background very calmly with her mask on. And this isn't something that I took a whole lot of notice of before, but she does only wear the mask when she plays that one particular song. And Orochi is understandably quite confused about this. The whole island is exploding, and this lady is just sitting here calmly playing her shamisen, which is a little bit terrifying. She did drop it just now. She wasn't just stoic the whole way through. That would have been pretty hectic. But he even brings up that he thinks that she is a ghost, which is kind of what a lot of people thought for a while. I wasn't really sure if this was an illusion or actually Komurasaki. It makes sense that she's here, but it's interesting that Orochi brings up the same thing that we were thinking when this first happened. And then, miraculously, out of nowhere, too good to be a coincidence, the ceiling above Orochi collapses and pins him to the ground. Not killing him, just incapacitating him, just enough that he can't move. Which is cool. A little bit suspicious. Kind of would have thought we would have seen a hint of an attack in there, but I didn't at all. And it turns out very sneakily that Komurasaki has hit him with some sea prism stone nails, and this is preventing him from turning into his huge Hydra-like form, which is really cool. But where did she get sea prism stone nails? And the fact that she can use them stealthily without being drained of power most likely means that she's not a devil fruit user, but I guess we don't have confirmation on that just yet. I kind of assume that she has the time fruit, but I'm not certain. I also don't know where else it would have gone when Toki died. Like, who else would have had it? It's been 20 years, unless that fruit works a little bit differently, but I doubt it. And here we get the reveal that Orochi's favorite song that Hiyori is always playing when she puts the mask on is actually the same song that Odin loved, called Moon Princess, that we had referenced a long time ago. Recently in the podcast that I recorded with one of my friends, I did mention that it's probably going to be very story important for the song that Odin loved and the song that Orochi loves to probably be the same song, and we get that confirmed now, which is nice. But what I didn't really think too much about was why she wore the mask when she plays this song. And it makes a lot of sense. The fact that it was always very reminiscent of her father and she loved to play it for him and she practiced it in earnest because he liked the song so much that she couldn't bear to put a smile on her face when she played it for Orochi, one of the men responsible for killing her father Odin. So this is a lot of very deep character development for Hiyori, which is really cool so far along into Onigashima and Wano, but it's very nice that it's all coming together and coalescing. So Raizo was talking about some preparations being done when Jinbei found him, which was very interesting. And we immediately cut over from that to Hiyori and everything that was happening with Orochi. So the preparations that Raizo mentioned, I'm assuming were the preparations to take down Orochi finally. And given that we have Raizo mentioning this straight into Hiyori executing the plan with the Sea Prism Stone nails, I think that this is the point where Denjiro is going to come back into things. The use of the Sea Prism Stone nails to prevent Orochi from changing into his zone form is probably what's going to be the thing that actually gets him killed. So it is important, one, to make sure he can't shift so that it's easier to fight him, but also if his Devil Fruit power is inactive, then it is most likely the case that when he gets decapitated, he won't be coming back from it. I think we have a very similar situation here that we do with Marco. If you put Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on Marco and chop his head off, I'm pretty sure Marco would just die. I think the same with Orochi then. If you had cut off Marco's head while he was either already healing himself or he has the ability to regain from such a grave injury, I think the same can be said for Orochi. I don't think we've seen enough head chops to determine that he has a set number of lives or infinite lives with his Devil Fruit, but I think it's going to be the case that either we reach the maximum number because of the Sea Prism Stone nail, or the Sea Prism Stone nail is going to prevent the thing that keeps him from coming back. So it's not necessarily that you have to cut off all of the heads or in quick succession or anything like that. You just have to disable his ability entirely and then kill him. It depends on the nature of the Orochi fruit and whether it's more like a Hydra or more like an immortal being. And it would seem a little bit unusual for it to be just immortality as long as it's decapitation. So due to the fact that Orochi can lose his head and still be fine, even though he's in his human form and he has no hybrid or full zone transformation at all, the power of his Devil Fruit is very likely just to bring him back to life after he's been decapitated. I'm not sure if it's full immortality. It doesn't matter how you kill him. I think it might only have to do with decapitation. He might die if you just stab him through the heart. He might not come back at all. But with the Sea Prism Stone, that power is going to be inactive, and Denjiro is going to finally come back with Hiyori there and the planning of Raizo, who will probably ask Jinbei to help him along to finally kill Orochi. Now, whether this means that all 9 of those predetermined shadows need to be there now, or if it was just the acts of all 9 of those shadows together that are going to take Orochi down. Either the 9 shadows didn't specifically mention the Akazaya, or if it's just all 9 people that are going to be here when Orochi gets killed, but I think Orochi's time is very quickly nearing, and we haven't seen Denjiro for a long time now, especially since the last memorable thing I can think that he did was fighting Kaido. We haven't seen him at all since then. So I think this is now the time that he's going to come back up, now that these preparations are complete. So then we cut over to the castle basement, and we see Izo still fighting with the CP0 agents, which I didn't really think it would go so well, and it went kind of how I thought, but Izo did pretty well, which is great. And he's telling Kiku to just survive, to live on, as he's ending his fight with who we now, I guess, call Maha. I never would have guessed that name, but here we are. And as they shoot each other, one with a pistol and one with a gun, which is pretty cool. And they both hit the ground. assumedly out of the fight, defeated. Now, our masked CP agent friend, mask guy, is cursing Izo as he falls to the ground, and honestly looks like his corpse is catching fire, and Izo's not looking too good. And then he exclaims, Maha. So I guess that's just the guy's name, which is fine and all. I just wouldn't have guessed it. Didn't guess it at all. But Maha it is. It's probably not short for anything, but we'll see. So Mask Guy is determined as ever to get after Nico Robin and just kind of complete the mission that he's been assigned, despite losing the other half of his team and the room around him and the fight. But he's determined as ever, which is nice. Just then, he gets a call from the Go Board room, I guess we call it, and the other member of CP0, which I guess is actually the leader of the ones that are here on the island. I kind of assumed he was a lackey because he was left behind, but it makes more sense for him to be in charge since he's singing them out. But he's now handing down an order that came directly from the Elder Stars, which is kind of their whole reason for existing, so you don't want to miss one of these. And what they have ordered is to eliminate Straw Hat Luffy at once. Which, you know, guys, if it were that easy, surely you would have done it up until now. But, you know, and Mask Guy also understandably reacts in pretty much the way we would, saying, in that fight with Luffy and Kaido, you want me to just jump in there and take the kid out? Yeah, that's impossible. How would I do that? And I'm pretty sure Kaido would kill him just for the attempt, to be honest. The Elder Stars apparently know that it's impossible, which is great. They're not nonsensical. They're just being unreasonable. But they say because it is a world-class battle, which is why it's so dangerous and important. And these orders are meant to prevent the worst-case scenario. Now, I don't know what they're thinking the worst-case scenario is, but the dragon being taken down by a 19-year-old kid, that doesn't seem great for any of them, to be honest. It doesn't matter which pirate comes out on top. It's not going to be good for them, because if it's Kaido, well, then there's just a really strong alliance that nobody can really take down. And if it's Luffy, well, literally half of your emperors have fallen and the world's balance is going to shift massively. So I don't really know what they're trying to achieve out of this. I don't know if they're just issuing that order because they have to issue some kind of order in response to this just to save face. But I don't think that they are assuming that it's going to be so easy to just take care of Luffy, but maybe that if the opportunity presents itself to take Luffy out by ordering CP0 to do it, to kind of sneak in and take him out while he's busy, maybe that will just swing things in their favor in the way that they think that they can just control the situation by ordering some masked guys to just kill someone. Not that that would really help, but what are they going to do from Marijois? So elsewhere in the basement, we have Usopp riding on Hamlet, which is really fun. I think they're a great pairing, and they seem to get along quite well, which is nice. He has got Kiku and Kinemon in tow, and he is striving to keep them alive and trying to keep them strong, which is pretty much what Usopp does in general. So I think it's very interesting that we're cutting from Izo, who's now down and thinking about Kiku, to Usopp, who is carrying both of them in a fairly nearby area. So I'm assuming that Usopp is going to pick up Izo and keep him alive, as well as, if Drake has not already taken down the masked guy to kind of fulfill his debt to Luffy in his eyes, then I think that he will also take Drake with him when he comes through. But I doubt it. Usopp's more of a pass and go, pick up the injured kind of guy. At least he is at the moment, anyway. So while the CP are having this conversation, he's standing up and getting himself ready to throw his hat into the ring here and fight the masked guy, which they're both heavily injured now. Drake was recently beaten by this guy, and he's been taking a short nap in fire to relax. So I don't really know how it'll go. I don't think Usopp and Hamlet arriving will really make the fight that much easier, but it could make escaping a little bit easier, so we'll see which way we go about it. We have an interesting few panels here with Nekomamushi and Wanda and Carrot, where he's just kind of ushering them off the edge of Onigashima more towards the dome, because it's starting to crumble. At first I was a bit confused as to why this is here, but I think what this is really illustrating to us is that the forces of Kaido's flame clouds are starting to weaken even further, and it's getting really, really close to dropping out of the sky. So Onigashima falling is finally something we actually have to really start getting concerned about properly, kind of like everyone else on the island is, because it's been floating for quite a while our time, and it's been falling for quite a while our time too. So I think now is the time, and this is the thing that is alerting us that we're really starting to get close to what's going to be happening with Onigashima and its dropping or not dropping status. And we do get confirmed here that Franky is here to save Zoro, which is fantastic. I was really hoping somebody would be around. Marco we saw earlier and he was busy, so I'm glad that we did get that little clip of Franky being nearby and on his way to save him. And I did see yesterday, or was it the day before? I did see recently that Dawn of the World shared a picture of Franky using a claw machine to save Zoro, and I thought that was great. I really got to get onto One Piece Twitter more often, apparently, because there's some cool stuff going on over there. And we have it confirmed that Claw Machine Franky is here to save Zoro. Earlier in that other podcast, I did think that a strong right would be the perfect fit for saving Zoro here, and it seems that's what we've got, so that's always quite nice. But I'm glad to see Zoro very much in safe hands, despite how incredibly dead he looks. In fact, it looks just like an upside down, nothing happened moment. And that is very, very concerning. This chapter really has us visiting a lot of places. It's a very busy chapter, and we cut to a lot of different characters in a lot of different places. So now we're cutting to the Animal Kingdom bath in the forehead floor. I'd really love a full map of Onigashima that has every floor and room labeled, because there seems to be some very interesting ones where at this bathhouse, which seems to be right behind the live floor, the Kid Pirates and the Heart Pirates are still celebrating the defeat of Big Mom, indicating that it probably still just happened where we're discussing right now. And Nami seems to just kind of be recapping everything that we learned about the fight with Big Mom and how it concluded and that massive shockwave that happened. There's a little bit of a back and forth between Nami and Zeus about him staying there and Mama falling through the hole, and him being very distraught over Big Mom falling and Nami getting jealous of that. And I'm glad he's around, but I'm not the biggest fan of Zeus. I think it's great that Nami gets the power up, and it kind of ensures that Big Mom has to stay alive and is still alive, because as we saw with Mother Caramel, when she died, her homies disappeared, otherwise they still would have been there. Unless they're the same homies, which their names changed, but I don't think so. It's also great to see Hihimaru and Komichio here. Marco's looking after them and says they're fine, which is great. I think they're wonderful little additions to the arc that we have here, especially with the whole Momotaro story that we were telling before with, the whole of Onigashima. And I think they just fit really well as wildlife of Wano. And Marco says something very interesting here, where everyone should keep on their guard because this is still the most dangerous island in the world right now. And I think that's just a very hard-hitting thing for a Yonko commander to say. He really understands the gravity of the situation and everything that's going on. So we see a little bit more celebrating from the respective Supernova Pirates here, as both captains are just staring up at the hole in the ceiling because they know what monster is up there. So Kid asks Law if he's got any strength left to take on Kaido, and Law just kind of collapses, giving up the cool guy act. He is exhausted and says along the lines of, "No thanks, one emperor is enough for me today." And Kid agrees. I think they're both well beyond exhausted. They are going to need a long nap after this one. And the consensus here is, regardless of whether Luffy wins or Kaido wins, whoever comes back through that hole, they don't have any willpower left or any strength left to fight. They're just done now. They are leaving everything in Luffy's hands here, which is huge given their characters, but I don't think they have any choice here. They are both entirely spent after that last fight. Cutting back up to the roof, we see a clash of conquerors, which is really great to see. Just consistently Luffy matching up to Kaido here and going blow for blow on these intense levels that we're seeing. as Luffy's reeling from that attack and that clash, Kaido asks if he sensed that too. And this is why I recorded that extra bit for the last chapter review, is because I really did think that the defeat of Big Mom would become very, very readily apparent to one or both of these guys on the roof. And Kaido seems the most perceptive, which is odd given how drunk he is. But he laments Big Mom being taken down, and he goes into a rage and is just exhuming Conqueror's haki. Luffy also notices here that Kid and Law did succeed in taking down Big Mom, and he commends them for that in the way that Luffy does. He's a very supportive kind of guy. They're not having a conversation or anything, but it's nice to get that affirmation of Luffy and the kind of guy he is and how he recognizes these things in other people. Even if he's not there to see it, he just kind of assumes and goes with that. Then we get a small flashback to 15-year-old Kaido's viewpoint of meeting Big Mom. And by the way that this is kind of framed here, I'm assuming that Kaido doesn't always remember this. He doesn't always consciously remember the time he met Big Mom and how long they've known each other, or he's not consciously thinking about it and understanding it in that way, because he flashes back here, and I don't think that Kaido always really remembered this interaction with Big Mom and how they actually met and all of those early years. I think a lot of his drinking is kind of numbing himself to these things, all of his previous positive experiences and good memories from the past that he's just kind of repressing because he couldn't achieve his dream in the way that he wanted to, because he couldn't be Joy Boy and he couldn't be the person that he wanted to be. And this is one of those things that he's been repressing for a while, until now when it came up while he's drunk. And then he enters another crying drunk phase, and he is distraught over the fact that Big Mom has been taken down just after they swore an oath to claim the One Piece, and Luffy is having none of this. And we see an evil looking panel of Luffy here as he comes in to just knock Kaido down. It's very rare and unusual to see a panel like this of Luffy, such a carefree and happy character. Yes, at times he gets very serious, like at his fight with Katakuri, and he was very determined. But even in that fight, we also see him put on a happy face, literally, so that his crew can rest assured that everything is going to be okay. He intentionally hid his seriousness and his determination when talking to them and reserved it for his fight. But what we have here is a demonic-looking Luffy. The first time I saw this, I didn't even think it was Gear 4th. I thought it was something else entirely different. But here we have Luffy going into Gear 4th Snake Man and just punching Kaido across the face. Conqueror's haki, advanced and all. And in a double-page spread, he just unleashes Hydra into him. And ever since Impelled Down, I kind of thought that we would have some kind of Hydra move, but it's really cool to see it up here in Gear 4th and at such a high level of technique. And he is just laying into Kaido. Kaido is having no time to react here. He is just getting destroyed. He was, granted, distracted by his distraught moment. And Luffy says, "Your ambitions mean nothing to me. Don't talk to me about your dreams. Your dreams lead to the people of this country starving." And this is so Luffy. This is exactly why he's in this fight. This is back to the Oshiruko moment at the beginning of Onigashima when they first got there, and every interaction that he's had with Tama. This is exactly why Luffy is here, and his motivation for kicking Kaido out. So he says, "This is it. I'm in Gear 4th now for the final time. I'm just going to hit you until one or both of us goes down." Which is how Luffy does things. This is how Luffy always does things. Where he is in the fight and trying to figure it out as much as he can and trying to wear his opponent out and beat him in the smartest way that he can given what he's got. And then he reaches a point where he has to just go all in and fight until he drops or defeats his opponent, or both. Like with Rob Lucci, like with Katakuri, we've seen it many times. And this is just a great way to end this chapter, and I think we are getting really quite close to Kaido just being taken down. I'm not sure what the name of that title will be, but I think it's going to be very soon. I assume that we're going to wrap up a few of the other things here in Wano before we get the conclusion to this one, because it would be very anticlimactic to defeat Kaido and then have all of these other important things to do. as well as soon as Kaido gets taken down, that is also the end of the flame clouds. Momonosuke can't really produce big enough flame clouds to encapsulate the island if it does start to fall. He can only produce the small clouds like we saw before, at least up until now. So a new kind of way of solving this and a new path forward really needs to open up soon, because it looks like those flame clouds are not very far behind falling. So those were some of my first thoughts on chapter 1041 of One Piece. It was a really great chapter. I very much enjoyed it. I would also obviously like to get these out a little bit sooner after the chapters actually come out. I'm thinking a lot about how I want this channel to go and what I want to change about it. But I've also been quite busy with work and a few other things over the last couple days, so I didn't really have a lot of time to do it then. So as I get there, I'll also just try and get the schedule a little bit more consistent. But I'm going to be doing chapter reviews of all of the chapters of One Piece as they come out going forward, but there are also a lot of other discussions and theories and other kinds of videos that I'm thinking about trying and getting into, as well as some other gaming stuff and whatever I feel like talking about. I'd also like to do some JoJo stuff at some point, so we're going to see how it goes from here, but at least it's a start. Cheers.